Hi everyone, today I'm talking about Rajas of the Ganges, which is a 2 to 4 player board game designed by Inka and Markus Brand. This one is a worker placement game set in India, and it takes around 45 to 75 minutes to play. Now, generally medium weight worker placement games are something I shy away from. However, I've had a lot of people praise this one and recommend that I check this one out, because a big part of this game is the fact that your resources are dice, and I tend to love dice-driven Euro games. So as you can see, the board of this game is rather beautiful, and you also have individual player boards like so, which has a tile placement aspect to them, which I'll go into a bit more detail shortly. You're going to start the game with 3 workers, but you're going to have potential to gain more workers. Now, with a lot of Euro games, the objective is to get points, but this one, the scoring is a bit different and takes a much different approach to winning the game, because you actually have 2 tracks in this game. You have the money track and you have the points track. And the game is going to end when these two meet each other. So once you get a certain amount of money by going around this track, and when that meets the amount of points, then that is going to trigger the end. So a different approach there, and it has a race aspect, as you want to be the first person to do that. So the board is, while it's still very beautiful, there is a pretty simple different sections in this game, and I think maybe the game board initially looks like it could be a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot going on, but if you break it down into their individual sections, it's pretty straightforward. So the first part of this board is this river track that goes down the center here, and which will give you bonuses by going down it. So you're going to go to these different spots here. So the first spot is going to be free, and you're going to put your worker on there, and anybody else who goes after you is going to have to pay an additional fee to go there. And then you're going to basically dedicate one of your dice, and you've got this little kind of individual player board here that tracks your dice and measures how many you can hold, because you can only ever hold 10 at one time. And yeah, to go to this spot, you're going to have to discard a dice of value 1, 2, or 3, and that is going to determine how far down this river track you can go. And wherever you end up, you're going to get bonuses, such as taking 2 dice of your choice, going up this karma track up here, which allows you to cash karma in and flip the face value of a dice to the opposite side, like so. You can take money, you can take one of these additional bonuses here, which I'll touch upon shortly, and so on. So you've got lots of different bonuses. Additionally, on these tracks, you've got the potential to unlock more workers. So once you reach a certain point on this river track, you can unlock your 4th worker. And if you reach another one, like by going up to a certain point on the money track or the certain point on the points track, then you can unlock your 5th worker. But as soon as you unlock your 5th worker, the 6th one is discarded. So you are only ever capped at 6 workers. The next part is simply these spots here, where you can just take a die of the matching colour. This spot here lets you convert 1 die into 2 of another die colour. So that's a way of kind of increasing your potential options. You've got these different sections here which let you do different tricks, but you have to cash in particular or specific values of dice. So this one lets you take the first player marker and get you 2 points. This one lets you take two dice colours of your choice, and take one of these bonus markers, which give you little bonuses such as money or an additional die there, and so on, points. You've got this one here that lets you upgrade your building charts here, which I'll touch on shortly. This one here lets you go down the river, and this one here lets you upgrade your buildings. Now that ties into this part of the board, which is, I suppose, maybe the biggest part of the board, which corresponds into your individual player boards, because this is where you are going to add new tiles onto your player boards. So at any time there's going to be 12 face-up tiles here, and these are kind of in preset piles, but they are randomized. And you're going to pay the fee, and then you're going to cash in a certain amount of dice depending on the value needed. So for example here, I would need to cash in green dice up to a value of 4, and any kind of overspent is going to be wasted. And then you're going to put that tile somewhere onto your player board like so, and continuing the roads like this. Now the reason you want to do this is for a number of reasons. First off being that whenever you have a road that kind of connects to these bonuses on the rim of the board here, you're going to get those rewards instantly, such as money, or again additional dice. You're going to get points, you're going to get to upgrade your buildings, and so on. But additionally, you can potentially get money by placing these ones here, and the buildings. So the buildings are going to be a way of getting points, and whenever you place them, you are going to get points equal to the number of your current value on each building type. So, for example, I just placed this tile. That corresponds to this one here, which means I would get 2 points. And that ties in to this one here, as I said, which if you go there, you can kind of upgrade your building type to make it worth 3 points. But that only continues from any building built after that upgrade. So you can really invest in a certain building type, or you can spread yourself a bit thinner and leave your options wider, depending on what buildings are available. And the final section of the board correlates to the different resource types that you can potentially place by laying these tiles. As you can see, you've got 3 different types. You've got like the spices, you've got this one here, and you've also got the potential for building these rugs. And when you go to these spots, of course, you're going to place your worker as normal, but you're going to discard a die. And depending on the value of that die, you can cash in for each of a resource type on your board. So if I got rid of, say, I discarded a 3 die, then I could score up to 3 of my rugs, for example, and I'd naturally pick my most valuable ones and get income accordingly. This one here works slightly differently, where you have to pick 3 or 1 of the different types of resources and score for those instead. And finally, there's a very small spot here that lets you take a bit of money and re-roll your dice. So that's going to be how the game plays out. It's pretty straightforward worker placement, but the twist with the dice as your resources makes things a little bit different. So let's talk about how I think about the game in the first place. So first off, I have to say this game does flow very nicely, and I like some of the individual mechanisms that go into this one. Particularly this score track, I think that's very interesting, and it puts a slight different slant and a different take on a worker placement game like this. Additionally, I do like the fact that the dice are your workers or your resources in the first place, and it's not always like the higher valued ones are better than the lower valued ones, because you can't even use a 4+ to go on the river, and you need very particular ones to take these bonuses. Sometimes the higher ones are better because they let you buy the the better tiles sometimes, but it's all depending on what the state of the board is. Additionally, the extra layer of the tile placement I think adds a lot to the game, and I think without this it would be a bit too light for me, I think. But this extra layer is great. Not only because you're trying to get the points by laying the buildings that you've invested in and obviously building a bit of an economy, but also this connection bonus thing works extremely well, and I'm getting the right tile at the right time to get all the bonuses and benefits is quite satisfying, and I do like that. And it doesn't feel like this tile placement part of the game is tacked on, which I thought it would feel like. So I do like the way that works. There's also some good abilities or potential for getting combos here, and particularly with this river track. So you could go down a certain amount of spots and get a bonus, like this one, for example, lets you take one of these, and that can let you invest something, which for your next turn you can build a building and get more points for it. So you do have to line your turns or line up your turns as efficiently as you can. So there is some good scope for clever decision making here, but the vibe of the game does still feel quite forgiving, and you can pretty much go anywhere and do quite well. I do quite like the kind of the economy of the game, and the kind of your flow of dice is quite fun as well, because if you find yourself just keep spending your dice immediately by getting new tiles, you have to build up from scratch and potentially take some, just waste your whole turn, well, not waste your whole turn, but take your whole turn just taking a single die, and then multiplying them accordingly, and you can quickly kind of compound your bonuses and build up, which works well. But because the game isn't divided into phases or rounds, and you aren't given a set amount of turns, as I said, it's the race aspect. I think you don't feel like you're wasting your turns by taking these weaker actions, and I think that's well done. Mitigation, yeah, there is some mitigation here. You've got you can re-roll your die. You can use these karma things here, which let you flip the pip values to the other side. So there is a decent amount of mitigation, but I like the influx of dice that you take, and it always feels like you're rolling them and bringing new ones in. And it's not really a game where you're slogging and just grinding trying to get your dice. So I do like the feel of the game, and it does feel quite. It feels like you're being showered in dice at all times, and I do like that. The time investment of this game is good, to be fair. I think most games of this vein usually take around the 90-minute mark, and this one does a good job of keeping it under that. So yeah, no complaints there. I think it definitely doesn't outstay its welcome. It is engaging from start to finish, and yeah, it's certainly in that ballpark of where it needs to be, and yeah, it doesn't go on too long. Same goes with uptime, really. This, because again, the value of the dice and the dice you're taking into your pool is quite forgiving, and you can keep up to 10. You know, you're not completely pigeonholed into what you can do. Turns do generally go by quite quickly, and there's always a good option out there for you. So the analysis paralysis and things doesn't bog this game down, and it always does tick along nicely. Replayability. The game has, or the designers have done, I've made an effort to make this appeal to a broader scope of gamers, because you've got the base game here, like I've explained, but there are variations where you can kind of modify the spots on the river. There is another option where you can flip the board over and make things a bit more difficult. And you can kind of mix those approaches as well, so you can kind of handicap more experienced players. So and there's also additional methods where you can basically allocate your own little bonuses on the sections and things, but I won't go too far into that. But if you like the idea of this, but it still maybe seems a little bit too straightforward, then there is slight variations to up the ante a bit if that's your kind of cup of tea. The aesthetics of the game, I think this game is absolutely stunning looking. This is one of my favourite boards I've seen for quite a while, and the detail is great. Yes, I think initially it can seem a bit like, you know, iconography being quite overwhelming. But once you get playing, it certainly isn't, and it's more than digestible. But still very stunning to look at. You know, I love the dice are all really colourful and good quality. These are really good to see how many dice you have left and how many you can store. All the tile quality is great and clearly illustrated. Really good production here, and it strikes a great balance of being affordable, beautiful, but still very functional, and and high quality production. Setup and teardown time is actually surprisingly good. The only thing is you've got all these different tiles of 3 different types, and again they are all preset in their different piles, but they are randomized within those piles. But the box does do a good job of giving an insert, so you can put each type in their own little section, which again will just iron out those creases and make it easier to get to the table. The sense of progression is good in this one, because not only does it have that race aspect, once you get to certain spots on the board you are going to unlock your next workers, which gives you more potential for more actions. Additionally, you can invest in these spots here, which will of course give you more points when you build those buildings. So yeah, it does have a good forward momentum, and of course you're always trying to leave yourself options of where you're going to build next, because you can potentially cut yourself off like I have here. So there, yeah, you've got to bear that in mind, and there's kind of 2 different parts of the game, the worker placement aspect and the tile placement aspect. The scalability, I think this game does scale really well. The board is double-sided, one side being for the 4-player game, 3 or 4, the side being for the 2-player game. There is some spots that get blocked out on the 3-player side, so yeah, scales perfectly fine, and I don't think it's going to suffer at any player count, to be honest. Player interaction in this game is fairly limited. Of course, you've got your worker placement in terms of, you know, people snatching the spots you want, and you've also only got 12 tiles face up at each time, and passively people are going to be taking the tiles that you want and have your eye on, but still the kind of interaction between the players is limited to that, really. The river does have a slight bit of player interaction, where if you're on a spot and someone goes after you, they jump over you, so they can't share the same spot as you. And of course, on these spots like this, where people are going places before you, you're making your opponents pay more to go to those actions. So there is a level of prioritizing your actions where the player interaction does shine through. So yeah, overall, I think this is a lovely game. I think it's really nice. It's smooth. Of course, it's beautiful. And I can certainly see why it has received the praise it has over the years. Again, I've had a lot of people recommend this one to me. I've never really heard too many bad words about it, to be honest. In fact, almost universal praise for this one. And yeah, objectively, I cannot fault it, to be honest. It's really nice, really pleasant. It ticks along nicely. I like the tile placement aspect. It's a nice little puzzle there, as well as some strong worker placement. The only issue for me is that I would struggle to find maybe the niche in my shelf to put this one in, because if I want to play a dice-driven worker placement game, I'd probably always go towards something like Marco Polo before this one. Now, that's no slant on this game at all. That's more of a personal taste. And maybe if this really is your, worker placement is your real, is your thing, then it would warrant having both. But I don't personally think I would warrant having both, especially, such a crowded marketplace as it is. So don't get me wrong, I would happily play this one anytime. I think it's a really good example of a game of this weighting and of a worker placement game. A really strong one. But I think there are ones that I'd go to before this. Additionally, I would have liked to have seen maybe 10%, 20% more, not complexity, but more variation in the scoring here, particularly these buildings. So I would have really liked to have seen if all these buildings scored in a slightly different way, and it didn't have to be in wildly different ways. Maybe one works as it is, maybe one just has a different kind of set collection bonus or something like that, just to put a bit more slant on the different types of buildings and give you a bit more thought process about what you're going to invest in, rather than just trying to push them all up and build as many as you can. So that would have been nice to have seen that, and maybe other people don't have that thought, but it would have been more tailored to my taste if that was the case. But other than that, what a pleasant game. Again, happily play this any time. Can't fault it, and I can't really give it any negative criticism really. So yeah, I would recommend this one. I think maybe if this is, these medium weight worker placement games are your cup of tea, you've probably checked this one out, and I would, if you haven't, I would recommend you do, because you are going to enjoy it. I enjoyed it, and I would certainly give it a recommendation. So I feel like I can't give anything but a seal of quality, or shield of quality, for Rajas of the Ganges. It's a great example of what it does. Really gorgeous, and just a fun game that plays in about an hour. So if you have enjoyed this review, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.